Hello, my dear friends. In this lecture, we are going to study Fraunhofer diffraction due to n number of parallel equidistant slits. In the last session, we have seen the Fraunhofer diffraction for double slit. Now, we will focus on Fraunhofer diffraction due to n number of parallel equidistant slits. Like we have Like in previous sessions, first of all, we took Fraunhofer diffraction for single slit, then for double slit, and now we will arrange n number of parallel and equidistant slits. Sometimes we called it as a theory of diffraction grating also. We'll definitely, first of all, so before studying the n number of parallel equidistant slits and its Fraunhofer diffraction, we will first focus on grating. What is meant by grating? So here, grating means what? See, the definition of grating is it is an here. First of all, I'll write the definition. It is an arrangement of n number of parallel slits, or we can say n number of parallel slits of equal width. The width of all the slits will be same, so they are of equal width, and all the slits are separated from each other by equal opaque spaces. So the space between two adjacent slits is equal. Such an arrangement is called grating. Such arrangement is called as a grating. That means what? We simply have to arrange n number of parallel slits of equal width and separated by equal opaque spaces. I'll explain later on what is meant by opaque spaces. So just remember one thing, that grating means what? It is the n number of parallel slits of equal width and equal distance of separation. So how we basically obtain the grating? Just I'll tell you. Here, if I took a glass plate like this, so this is a glass plate. So on this glass plate, we rule equidistant parallel lines. On this particular plate, we rule equidistant and parallel lines. Here I'll draw some of here like this. These lines will be parallel as well as they will be equidistant. As I am drawing this particular diagram on bigger scale, but in real life grating is much smaller. So I just like to introduce the concept. So these parallel lines are made on this glass plate by using a fine diamond point. We use what? Fine diamond point. So by using this diamond point, we mark these lines on a glass plate. Now see, always remember these lines, they act as a opaque spaces. These lines act as what? As opaque spaces. And the distance between two lines, that means this particular part, this one, this transparent part act as a slit. This transparent part, this one or this one, this acts as a slit. So this is slit. So grating is what? See, here I have drawn this diagram on a bigger scale. In reality, the gratings are of very small size. That means why so small size? Because as we all know that to observe the diffraction pattern, the spacing or the slit width must be in the order of lambda, or it has to be nearer to the lambda. Lambda is the wavelength of monochromatic light which is used for diffraction. Then here I'll write, as I said, the number of lines for a particular grating. It is in the order of 15,000 to 20,000 lines per inch. So now you can imagine how small it is. As we all know that 1 inch is what? It is 2.54 centimeter. So for a particular grating, like in this small distance, that is 2.54 centimeter, we draw 15,000 to 20,000 lines on that glass plate. So this concept of grating, initially it was devised by, again, no doubt, Fraunhofer. So Fraunhofer, he devised this particular concept of grating. So now we will see how this grating. Again, see, grating means what? Again, here grating means n number of parallel equidistant slits. That is grating. So here, instead of using the word n number of parallel equidistant slits, we'll simply use the word that is grating here. Now we will study the theory of plane transmission grating. Now we will study the theory of plane transmission grating, or Fraunhofer's diffraction, when we consider grating. So first of all, here I'll draw n number of parallel and equidistant slits. So here, let these slits be like this one. Okay, this one is the first. The gap is nothing but slit, and these dark lines are nothing but the opaque spaces. Opaque spaces means what? The spaces through which light will not pass. That is opaque spaces. So in this way, we can draw n number of gratings or n number of parallel slits. Here, I'll mark the midpoint of these slits as, again, S1. This midpoint, let it be S1. Along with, we'll draw the light rays also. So here, the first light ray, this one. This is for S1. Then we have another one at here. Suppose this is for S2. We'll label them later on. First of all, we'll draw these parallel lines. That is incident light. This will be nothing but incident light. So all these light rays are coming from an source which is placed at an infinite distance from these slits, or a grating, we can say. So these are enough number of. So here, now see, for like whenever we consider Fraunhofer diffraction, we know that we keep the light source at infinite distance. So here, these are the light rays. Will This arrow will give you the direction. Again, this first point is, let it be S1. Then we have this second as S2, then S3. In the same way, there will be up to Sn. So the last, this is Sn, and before that, let this be Sn minus 1. In between, there will be n number of these lines of midpoints, we can say. So S1 is the midpoint of first slit. Similarly, S2 is for second, and then so on up to the Sn, which is the midpoint of nth number of slit. So now, here to study the diffraction pattern, first of all, here we'll draw one lens, and then here, first of all, I will draw one lens over here. This is the axis for lens, and here we'll have screen. This will be a screen. So now, see this one. This is a convex lens, as we all know that we use a convex or biconvex lens to focus the light on the screen. Now here I'll draw the diffracted rays here from each of that point. Again, see, this point or the center point will be nothing but it is what? It will be of brightest intensity point, the point which is at the center of that particular pattern. So here, this one, this line will give you the maximum intensity point, that is P naught. So this point will be what? It is P naught. Here it's like P naught. This one is screen, and this is lens L, and this one is the grating. S1, S2, S3. That is the everything. So now we'll draw the diffracted rays over here by a red lines. So now here I'll draw the lines like this. This is the first one. Then in the same way we have a light ray from S2, then from S3. In the same way, we can draw n number of rays which are starting from the midpoints of n number of slits. So these are what? These are the diffracted rays. So let number them as the first ray as P1, then second as P2, then in the same way this is P3, this is Pn minus 1, and the last one is Pn. So these are the diffracted light one. And see, all the rays, let they be subtend an angle of theta with the normal. So all the rays will subtend the equal angle, that is theta. Now we'll focus these rays on a particular point. So here I'll mark the point like this. This is first one. All rays will meet at common point like this. So this is what? This is the general point P, where we want to find its nature, or we will again find the condition for its maxima, secondary maxima, or minima. So let this point be P. So now see, as we all know that we can again, in the same way, just like in previous sessions, we have find out the resultant amplitude and the resultant intensity for this particular point P. So here in this case also we are going to find out the same for this point P. So for that purpose, first of all, we will consider again the basic theory is same, just like a double slit. Here all these light waves or whatever these, this one P1, P2 up to Pn, all these light rays are what? They are the collection of here n number of secondary wavelets for a single slit. So instead of showing all the light rays here, we have replaced all those secondary wavelets by a single light or single wave which is coming from the midpoint of that slit. So always remember that one. So this ray P1, it is the diffracted ray, or this one is the diffracted light due to this single slit. In the same way, all these rays represent the diffracted light from here, and again here they get interfered to produce the disturbance at point P. And now our target is what? We have to find out the resultant amplitude and resultant intensity at that particular point P. So first of all, here we'll write the equations for these diffracted light or these waves P1, P2. Before that, let us mark here the small a. This is what? Slit width, no doubt. And in the same way, let small b be separation. This is what? Separation. Again, see, in the double slit, I have already explained you that the distance between two midpoints or two adjacent midpoints like this S1 and S2, this particular distance, it will be what? It will be A plus B. Half part of first slit, that is A by 2, half part of second slit, this one, that is again A by 2, then addition of these two is A, and the separation between these two is B. So the total distance or the total length of this S1, S2, it will be A plus B. That will be what? A plus B. So now here we'll write the equations basically first for the diffracted light. So here I write the resultant amplitude of light for single slit, or it will be from single slit, that is this will diffracted light, it will be from single slit is, now we know the equation, it is what, it is E theta is equal to Em into sin alpha divided by alpha. And again we know what is meant by alpha. This alpha is nothing but pi upon lambda into a sine theta. Always remember this a sine theta is the path difference for this diffracted light. Now to find the path difference for this interfering light, here again this Em is, remember, Em means what, it is maximum amplitude. Em is maximum amplitude. So now see here all these secondary wavelets here from this each source. So each source will produce secondary wavelets in all possible directions, and we have drawn the resultant of all those waves, and the resultant of those waves, they have resultant amplitude as E theta equal to Em sin alpha upon alpha. So always remember this one, and this wave is been started from the midpoint of that slit. So in the same way, we will have n number of resultants, because here we have drawn the n number of these diffracted lights or waves which are arising from again the midpoint of all these n number of slits. So here we will have the n number of resultant amplitudes, and we will now find out the resultant of all these n number of resultant amplitudes, because that is nothing but the resultant amplitude at this particular point P. So whatever disturbance is going to produce at point P, that will be the resultant of all these n number of rays, diffracted rays. That is, we have to find out the resultant of n number of these resultant amplitude components. So we'll do that. Before that, we will find out the path difference. Now, as we all know that if whenever we want to find path difference, we simply draw a perpendicular. So here I'll draw one perpendicular from line S1. Here this is the perpendicular. So this is again angle 90. So let us mark all these points. First of all, this point here, this point is, I'll zoom the figure so it will be beneficial for you. So this point, the first point, this one, let it be K1. In the same way, this point be K2. Let this point be K3. Up to the last point will be not Kn, but it will be Kn minus 1. Always remember. The last point will be K minus 1. So all these are what? This K1, K2 are what? They all are the foot of perpendiculars on respective or individual wave which has been arise from the midpoint. So if we want to find out the path difference here, see if we consider these two rays, this one, the P1 and P2. So the path difference for P1 and P2, it will be what? This one, S2 into K1, S2 K1. So S2 K1 is the path difference for these two rays. In the same way, we can find out all these. This is what path difference. So if you like take a look here for the first ray, this P1, and the last ray, this Pn, the path difference will be Sn Kn minus 1. So this value will be the path difference for these two light waves which are starting from S1 and Sn. So now we will do it for one by one. Here, first of all, we'll do it one by one. Here, I'll write. So for these first two rays, this one, S1P1 and S2P2, the path difference will be S2K1. So here, again, we'll write the equation for this. It will be, here I'll write D path difference between S1 P1 and S2 P2 is, it will be what? S2 K1, and no doubt by geometry we can write its value as A plus B into sine theta. A plus B into sine theta. Why? Because see, this particular triangle, this one, small triangle. Again see, this angle will be again no doubt, the angle will be theta. This angle will be theta. So here, this is what opposite side, and this particular S1, S2, it will be the hypotenuse. So the value of S2 K1, it will be what? It will be hypotenuse multiplied by sine theta. So that's why here we have written the hypotenuse as A plus B and then multiplied by sine of the angle, that is sine theta. So this is what? This is the path difference between S1 P1 and S2 P2. Now, from this path difference, we can easily find out the phase difference. So, the phase difference is, let it be delta phi. So, delta phi will be equal to what? It will be 2 pi by lambda into A plus B into sine theta. Path difference will be what? 2 pi by lambda into path difference. So, that is phase difference. So, similarly, now we can do for S2P2 and S3P3, or here I'll write similarly path difference between, I'll write S1P1 and S3P3 is, now see the path difference for these two this way. First S1P1 and this one S3P3. The path difference will be what? S3K2. So that will be the path difference. S3K2. So here it will be S3K2 is equal to. Now see, again no doubt it will be a hypotenuse multiplied by angle. Now what will be the value of hypotenuse here? See this one. Here now hypotenuse will be S1, S3. So as we all know that S1, S2 is A plus B. Similarly, this S2, S3 will be A plus B only. So the total length of this S1, S3, it will be twice into A plus B. So here, this path difference for second set, it will be what? Here I'll write, it will be twice A plus B into sine theta. It will be twice A plus B sine theta. So again, here we can write the corresponding phase difference. So phase difference, it will be what? Here it will be again, let it be delta phi, or here phase difference, just write it as like 2 pi by lambda into path difference. So this value 2 into A plus B into sine theta. So now I can write this equation as this 2 into this 2 pi by lambda into A plus B into sine theta. But from this equation here, from this equation, see, 2 pi by lambda A plus B sine theta is nothing but delta phi. So here, this particular term, it will be what? It will be 2 into delta phi. So this is what? This is the phase difference for S1, here I'll write, for S1 P1 and S3 P3. So now we can easily say that, see, if the phase difference for this S1 P1 and S2 P2 is delta phi, and path difference for S1 P1 and S3 P3, see the phase is what? It is 2 into delta phi. So ultimately we can say the phase difference for S2 P2 and S3 P3, it will be delta phi. So now here we can write like this: the phase difference or the successive phase difference is, see, here I'll write, let mark this equation as equation number 1, and this equation, this one as equation number 2. So here I'll write Therefore, phase difference between successive waves, or sometimes we can use the word successive vibrations. So, the phase difference between successive vibrations, it will be what? H, this one delta phi is equal to 2 pi by lambda into A plus B into sine theta. So remember this equation, as this is the phase difference between any two successive waves. That is, you can say either in between P1 and P2 or P2 and P3. In the same way, it is the phase difference between Pn and Pn minus 1. So now we will find out the resultant amplitude here. So now we'll write, as I said, to find out the resultant amplitude of this P, or at point P, the resultant amplitude will be what? We have to add, or we have to do a vector sum of all the amplitudes of these n number of light waves, and each wave corresponds to the amplitude of E theta. So here, see, for double slit we use the vector method. So here, in this case also, we can use the same vector method to find out the resultant. Basically, that is beyond the scope of your syllabus. So here, we can neglect that part too. But for just general knowledge purpose, remember, see, I'll draw the vectors over here. Suppose the first vector, that is the P1. The amplitude of P1 is represented by this vector. Then, in the same way, the amplitude will be E theta only, and all the amplitudes, or all the waves will have same amplitude. So this is for first vector. We can draw this second vector like this one, and the angle between these two, it will be what? It will be phi. That is the phase difference between these two vectors. Then in the same way we can draw this third one, then fourth, and then fifth. In the way we have to draw n number of vectors, and then in general, we do a calculation. We took one point or one center over here. See, here I'll write, this is first vector, this is second, this is third. In the same way, this one is the last nth vector. And suppose this is n minus 1. So see, if you remember, in 11th standard, you must have learned the law of polygon. See, for vector addition, we use three types of laws. The first one is triangle law, then we have parallelogram law, and then we have the law of polygon. So, according to law of polygon, if you represent the vectors as the sides of incomplete polygon, again taken in order, then this remaining side of a polygon will give you the resultant of this n number of vectors. So here I'll draw one resultant. This one, this is the resultant of all these n number of vectors. So here I'll write the amplitude over here. The resultant amplitude of n waves, again I'll write amplitude of each is E theta. The resultant amplitude of n waves by vector addition is, the value is, so I'll write, this is E is equal to Em into sin alpha by alpha into sin n beta divided by beta. So you simply learn this particular equation. We can derive this equation here by using this polygon law, but that is not necessary for you. You simply learn this particular formula, and in your examination, if the question is asked on this particular topic, you can directly write this equation as it is. there is no need to prove this equation. So here, now this is the resultant amplitude. Here I'll write, see, let this amplitude of each, let it be E theta dash. Here I'll write this one is as E theta. That is the resultant amplitude at point P. So now here, therefore, the intensity at point P, the intensity or resultant intensity, we can say, the resultant intensity is, simply we have to square this particular equation. So it will be E theta square is equal to Em square into this sine alpha by alpha bracket square into this sine n beta divided by, here this equation E theta here, and in division it is not just beta but instead it is sine beta. Make a change over there. This is sine beta and not just beta. So here it will be sine n beta divided by sine beta whole bracket square. Again, as we all know that this E theta square, that is amplitude square, is nothing but intensity. So it will be I theta is equal to Im into this sine alpha by alpha bracket square into sine n beta divided by sine beta bracket square. So this is the resultant intensity of that point P. What resultant intensity here in this equation? Or we can see this is the equation which will give you the diffraction pattern of grating. Diffraction pattern of what? Grating. Again, see, again, just like double slit experiment, here also we can write which one is the diffraction component and which one is the interference component. So now here, see, the first component, that is, I'll write here this Im into sine alpha by alpha bracket square. This equation gives the intensity distribution. Always remember, this gives the intensity distribution in the diffraction pattern. Again, intensity distribution due to, no doubt, alpha. If alpha is there, that means this is due to single slit. In the same way, here another one, the second one, that is this one sine n beta divided by sine beta bracket square. This term gives intensity pattern, due to n number of slits. Due to n number of slits. So remember these two, or the meaning of these two terms. First one, Im sine alpha by alpha bracket square is intensity distribution due to single slit, and this term sine n beta upon sine beta bracket square, it will be intensity pattern due to n number of slits. So now here we can check, see, now this equation is general equation for n number of slits. So now if the number of slit is 1, see, we'll check whether this equation is correct or not. Here I'll write for single slit. For single slit, the value of n will be equal to what? N. So now this equation will become, see, it will be I theta equal to Im into sine alpha by alpha bracket square into, here we have to substitute the value of this n beta. So n is 1. So here we'll write this one as sine into 1 into beta is nothing but sine beta divided by what? Sine beta bracket square. No doubt this sine beta will get cancelled and we'll get the final equation as I theta is equal to Im into sine alpha by alpha bracket square. And if you remember, this is the only resultant intensity of a diffraction pattern when we consider single slit. Now see, now we'll check it for double slit. So for double slit, the value of n will be 2. So here I'll write for double slit, the value of n is what? It is 2. So now substitute this n as equal to 2 in equation. So this will be I theta will be equal to Im into again sine alpha by alpha bracket square into sine. Now see, here there is a term sine n beta. So here it will be what? Sine 2 beta divided by sine beta bracket square. So now here I'll write this term as it is Cim. This will be sine alpha by alpha bracket square into this one see sine 2 beta. So here we can use double angle formula. So sine 2 beta is what? 2 into sine beta into cos beta divided by sine beta as it is bracket square as it is. So here now sine beta will get cancelled. And then see here this 2 into cos beta bracket square. So the square of 2 is 4. So here I'll write 4 initially. So 4 Cim sine alpha by alpha bracket square into cos square beta. And if you remember, this is the equation for intensity distribution or the resultant intensity when we consider double slit. So that means what? Our equation, this equation, you can apply this equation to any number of slits. So this is the general equation, and that's why it is important. So if we have 3 number of slits, if we simply substitute this n as 3. So whatever number of slit may be, we can easily find out the resultant intensity as well as resultant amplitude for that particular diffraction pattern. So always remember the every slit it gives rise to a diffracted beam whose intensity depends upon the slit width, and all these diffracted rays they get interfere to produce the final diffraction pattern on this particular screen. Now we will find out the conditions for minima, then again for central maxima. Here we'll find out the conditions now. Now see here, first of all we'll find out for principal maxima. The condition for principal maxima. So here I'll write the condition for principal maxima. Now see, as we all know, for principal maxima, that is intensity should be maximum. So as we have the resultant intensity equation here, to see one can easily say, see from this equation here, I theta equal to this one, Im into this term. So if you want this intensity as maximum value, ultimately this sine beta, this one, this sine beta, it has to be 0, this one, this denominator. This sine beta has to be equal to 0. That is what? That will be the maximum value for this intensity. So here I have write first condition for this. So I write the first condition for principal maxima as here the I, that is I theta is maximum when this sine beta will be equal to 0. So therefore ultimately here beta will be what? It will be plus minus m into pi. Again here m will take values from 0, 1, 2 and then so on. Now see, if this sine beta is 0, as we all know that sine beta is in here in this equation, sine beta is in the numerator here, this one. If sine beta is 0, ultimately the whole equation will be infinite, or we can say it is not defined. So here first of all we have to set a limit for this particular value. So here I'll write for
beta equal to plus minus n phi, this term sin n beta upon sin beta, the whole term, it will be what? It will be in the form of 0 by 0, because here there is the term sin n beta and divided by sin beta. So this will become indeterminate. So here right, this will become indeterminate. So how to find then? Or no doubt, see, whenever we get the values as just like 0 by 0 or the terms which we can't determine, we use limit. So here I'll use the limit as, I'll write this limit beta tends to plus minus m phi, the value of this particular sign n beta divided by beta. So we have applied the limit.
So, as we all know that whenever there is a situation that we get the value of any of the limit as 0 by 0, or we can say indeterminate, so in that case we use a rule which is called as a L'Hospital rule. So here we can write by using L'Hospital rule. L'Hospital, or sometimes we called it as a L'Hospital also. So in this rule, what we do is what? We simply take the derivative of both the terms. So here I'll write this as, this will be limit b tends to plus minus m pi of sin n beta divided by sin beta will be equal to limit beta tends to plus minus m pi. Again here I'll write now derivative of this sin n beta divided by derivative of sin beta. Now we all know, here I'll write this limit as it is, limit beta tends to plus minus m pi. So derivative of sin n beta, it will be what? It will be n into cos of n beta divided by derivative of sin beta is what? It will be cos beta. So now if we apply the limit now, we'll get the value as, it will be here, and write this n as it is. Instead of beta we will write m pi, so it will be n into cos of this n into m pi divided by this cos of m pi. So see, now we'll get the values here. The value of this term cos of m pi, it will always be either 1 or minus 1. At the same time, cos of n into m pi, the value is what? Again it will be either plus or minus 1 only. So here I can write this is equal to plus minus n. So this is what? This is the value of this limit. Here I write this is limit beta tends to plus minus m pi into of sin n beta divided by sin beta. But in our intensity formula we have square term. So here I'll write this limit beta tends to plus minus m pi, this sin n beta divided by sin beta bracket square, the value will be what? It will be simply n square. So now we can substitute the value of this particular sin n beta by sin beta as n square, where in this particular equation. So now we'll substitute this value here in this equation, this one. Let this equation be, let it be 1 or 2, whatever. So we'll substitute here, instead of this sin n beta divided by sin beta bracket square, we'll write as n square. So now here the intensity, the maximum intensity, or the intensity of a principal maxima, it will be what? Here therefore this I theta will be equal to this Im into sin alpha upon alpha into this n square. or here we can write this as I theta is n square into Im into sine alpha by alpha. So this is what? This is the maximum intensity of diffraction pattern of the grating. This is the maximum intensity. And no doubt here, the intensity, though this I theta will increase as n increases. So ultimately, when the number of slits will increase, ultimately this intensity or the maximum intensity will also increase. So this is what? This is intensity of principal maxima. Now, again see, the intensity of central principal maxima will be maximum, and then on both the side of diffraction pattern, the intensity will goes on decreasing, just like in previous case of single slit and double slit. Now, we'll check it out for so here I'll write therefore condition for principal maxima is. Now we'll write the condition in terms of phase difference as well as path difference. So here, in terms of phase difference, it will be beta is equal to plus minus m into pi. So this is in terms of what? Phase difference. Now we know the value of beta. So here, as beta is what? The value of beta is pi by lambda into a plus b into sine theta. So now we'll substitute this value, or by using these two equations, here we can write this pi by lambda into a plus b into sine theta is equal to plus minus m into pi. So again here pi will get cancelled and we'll have the path difference, that is a plus b into sine theta, as plus minus m into lambda. Here the value of m is what? This m will be equal to either 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. Always remember, this m is called as a order number. Always remember this. This small m is called as a order number. Order number means what? See, if you substitute, or here if I'll write, if m is equal to 0, that means what? It will be a zero order maxima. It will be zero order maxima, and this zero order maxima is nothing but P naught, that is central maxima. Again similarly, if m is equal to 1, then it will be first order maxima. Then in the same way, if m is equal to 2, then it will be a second order maxima, and then so on. So again, one more thing over here, see, as we have the equation, see, if, yeah, I'll write the note, remember this, if number of lines on the grating, if number of lines on grating, if they increases, then what will happen? If number of lines on the grating increases, ultimately the value of this a plus b, it will decrease, because a plus b is what? It is the distance between two successive midpoints. So as number of lines will increase, ultimately a plus b, or the value of a plus b, will have to decrease. And as this value of a plus b decreases, always remember here we have equation a plus b into sine theta is equal to m lambda. This is the path difference. So if this a plus b decreases, ultimately here the m, or the order number, will also decrease. So here I'll write as this a plus b decreases, order number will also decrease. Will also decrease. So always remember these two, that if number of line increases, the a plus b, value of a plus b, see this a plus b, we also called it as a grating element. So its value will decrease and ultimately the order number will also decrease. So now this is all about the principal maxima. Now we will focus on minima. So here again for minima, again I'll write the equation here. See, as the value of I theta is what? I theta is equal to Im into sine alpha by alpha bracket square into sine n beta divided by sine beta bracket square. Now see for minima, see the minimum intensity will be what? It will be, yeah, I'll write for minima, this minimum intensity will be 0. And when this is possible, when the value of this sine n beta, when it is equal to 0, value of this sine n beta, if it is equal to 0, then ultimately this I theta will be 0. So therefore here I'll write sine n beta will be equal to 0. Then see, sine n beta is equal to 0. It doesn't mean that sine beta is also equal to 0, but sine beta is not equal to 0. Always remember that. If sine n beta is equal to 0, it doesn't mean that sine beta has to be equal to 0. Because if sine beta is also 0, then ultimately that will be the condition for principal maxima. Because here you will get 0 by 0, and then again we have to use L'Hospital rule. Here, this one. So remember that for minima, the value of this sine n beta is 0, but the value of sine beta is not equal to 0. So here again sine n beta is 0, then ultimately what will happen? Here this n beta, it will be equal to plus minus m pi. Now here remember this, here m will take all the values. M will have all the values except all the values except which one? 0. M will not take as a value of 0, because again that will be for central maxima. Again similarly it will not take any values like this n or twice n. In the same way up to small n into capital N, because for all these values of m, that will be the condition of central maxima. So here I'll write, because for these values of m, sine beta, sine beta will be 0. That is, but that is the condition of what? That is the condition of P naught, that is central maxima. So always remember this. For minima, the value of n beta will be, or here m will take all the values except these values. Here I'll make a box over here. Except these values. 0, capital N, twice n, up to small n into n. So for all these values, the sine beta will be 0, and ultimately that will be led to the condition of central maxima or principal maxima. So now this is all about the minima. So here the value of minima, this one. Now we will find out the value in terms of path difference. Again here in this equation we'll substitute the value of beta. So here I'll write the value of beta is what? It is again pi divided by lambda into a plus b into sine theta is equal to plus minus m into pi. So now again on both sides this pi will get cancelled and we'll get the value of this is as, here I'll write this n into a plus b into sine theta will be equal to plus minus m lambda. Plus minus what? M lambda. Again here also this m will have all values except 0, n, 2n, and then so on. So this is all about the Fraunhofer's diffraction for n number of parallel slits, parallel as well as equidistant slits, or we can say that is the concept of grating or grating diffraction. So now here we can note some important observations over here. The basic one, the first observation is what? See, so the first one is what? When the width of ruled surface means what? It is simply n into grating element, that is a plus b. If this value increases, the it leads to, or the width of this P naught, that is central maxima, it decreases and it becomes sharp. It become what? Sharp. So always remember, when the width of ruling element, when it is increases, or the width of ruled surface, or the value of n into a plus b increases, ultimately the width of P naught, that is the central maxima, decreases and it becomes sharper. So this is the first observation. Then the second observation is what? If this value a plus b is small, that means what? Grating element is a small. That means what? See, a plus b is small. That means here I'll write, that is, the lines will be close together. The lines will be what? They will be close together. Lines will be close together, as a plus b is nothing but the separation. So lines will be close together and ultimately the angular spacing between maxima increases. This will result into what? The angular spacing between maxima. It what? It increases. So for small value of this a plus b, the angular spacing will increase. As soon as the value of a plus b increases, the angular spacing, it decreases. What? It decreases. So this one is the second observation. Now we'll go for the third one and the last, that when the number of rulings in a grating increases, the principal maxima become intense. It becomes what? Intense and sharper too. So here I'll write, if number of rulings, if they increases, ultimately what will happen? The principal maxima, or it results in this principal maxima, it will what? It will become intense and sharp, no doubt. So these are the observations. And remember this term, this A plus B. This A plus B is called as a grating element. A plus B is what? It is a grating element. So remember that one, because sometimes they ask a question, what is grating element? Just for 2 marks. So you have to write the grating element is nothing but A plus B. And what is A plus B? A plus B is the separation between midpoints of adjacent slits, or we can say the distance between centers of adjacent slit. That is nothing but this is the grating element, that is a plus b. So this is all about the Fraunhofer diffraction due to n number of parallel equidistant slits, or in other words we say it is the theory of diffraction grating. So my dear students, in your examination there are different types of questions they may ask, like they may ask, like, to explain how the number of lines on grating decides the maximum number of orders of diffraction. That means ultimately you have to write everything. Then again there will be a question, derive condition for maximum diffraction at diffraction grating. Such a type of question they ask usually for 5 marks. So that means you have to derive the conditions for maximum diffraction. So again you have to explain everything, this particular, the diffraction pattern, then the equation, and then finally condition. Sometimes they ask the question like, for plane transmission grating, prove that d sine theta equal to n lambda. Now again here, that d sine theta, see sometimes they have asked like this one, prove that this d sine theta is equal to n lambda. So here this d means distance, and that is nothing but a plus b. So this is nothing but a plus b sine theta is equal to n lambda. So don't be confused over there, because that small d is nothing but the distance between centers of adjacent slits. So such a type of questions they usually ask. Sometimes they ask what is a diffraction grating. So diffraction grating means what? You have to write the definition of that grating, which we explain here initially. This one, the definition, or you can draw such a diagram. You can mention the opaque spaces, that are the lines and slit. Then sometimes they ask the advantages of increasing the number of lines in the grating. So now tell me only, see the advantage of increasing the number of lines. What will happen as you increase the number of lines? These lines ultimately their spacing will decrease. That means what? The value of a plus b, it will decrease, and the grating order, that is the value of m, it will see the value of this. As number of lines will increase, a plus b will decrease, ultimately number of orders will also decrease. Number of orders will also decrease, or we say grating order. Again, see, this will decrease, but ultimately it will make principal maxima a little bit sharper one as well as intense one. So such a types of questions usually asked in your university examinations. So be prepared for that. So my dear students, I hope you understood everything that we discussed in today's session. Kindly go through the proper concepts, all the equations, all the definitions, the phenomenon which we discussed in today's session. So, in our next session, we will focus on resolving power of an optical instrument and what is the Rayleigh's criteria for resolution. So, definitely, we'll check it out in our next session. Thank you so much.